It's always like so loud. I hate that it does that now. I didn't used to do that. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Shelby. If you're new here, I'm a health and fitness coach, mostly online, pretty much fully remotely online. I work with clients all over the world. And today I wanted to chat about something that has recently come to my attention. If you guys don't know, I'm about 6 months pregnant. And so marketing is real to the moms, right? And so with that, I've recently come across a lot of marketing specifically targeting towards like new moms and not even a mom yet technically, but moms in general about like mommy wine culture. And I was blown away by the amount of people who were like, oh my gosh, this is such a real thing and how crazy it is. And so I started chatting with my friend Allison that we're going to chat with today. Allison and I go way back from like gyms 5-6 years ago now, which is crazy to even say that it's been that long. But essentially, Allison is sober and is working in the addiction treatment world. So she is doing this full time. She is a professional in that field, and so I really wanted to chat with her to get her perspective because this shit's crazy. And I didn't realize just how bad it was until I said something about it because I, again, have like just, I'm not quite a mom, quote unquote, yet. I'm a new to be mom, and seeing kind of what alcohol is pushed as is completely different to the mom market. So Allison, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. It was so cool you asked me to do this. So yeah, Shelby and I go way back. She used to train me. She's the best trainer, little plug. But so I am the vice president of a behavioral health care company. So we treat substance abuse and mental health. And I kind of bridge the gap between the individual and the facility and kind of whether that, requires an intervention or family liaison services, whatever that is. I'm kind of, the middleman between the patient getting help and then getting to the actual facility.
Cool. So your job is essentially like somebody has a problem, they or a family member reaches out to you guys and you work to connect them to the facility to actually get help.
Yeah, and then I also, am able to market the facility in different arenas, whether, it's other healthcare spaces or, I mean,
Yeah.
so we're definitely, everyone knows somebody usually that's struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, just from having friends who work in this industry that I didn't know how you would like even contact people literally until knowing people who are working in the industry. So like anytime I've had questions, it's just about reaching out to people that I know and being like, hey, I don't know how to get this person help, but like what, you're someone I know that works in this field. What can I do? And that's what's been really cool. I've seen is this connection where I've reached out to people and they're like, okay, I'm not in this area, but I can connect you to people who are, which is kind of, I feel like what this network does really well, which is cool. So, um, can you tell me a little bit about like what it looks like? Obviously, not specific patients and whatnot, but from when they get connected to you, what it looks like going into like a facility and how far along does someone, I guess, have to be for it to be considered like a problem where they are seeking help?
Sure. So there's different levels of care depending on the acuity of the situation. So, our chronic drinkers, right, or drug users that have been struggling for quite some time, depending on, length of use, how much they're using, what they're using, all those types of things. There's like an assessment done. And then usually an individual will require detox, especially if it's alcohol or benzodiazepine. They're two fatal substances that you like while withdrawing if there's seizures. So there's an assessment done and then the individual is placed into a level of care. So we have just regular drinkers with maladaptive coping skills and you're like using the alcohol for a solution to your problems, loneliness, depression, anxiety, things like that. That's more of like an outpatient type of um, qualifier, right? And
Right.
then the waking up with shakes in the morning, not being able to function, having to drink before doing like daily tasks, that's going to require, a subacute or a medical detox.
Gotcha. Okay. And so the population we're technically talking about today really is more of that first group, right? And it could obviously translate into that second, but what what I'm seeing and what I'm getting, messages about is mostly this, like, it's a coping issue, right? It's a life is hard, here's a drink mentality. And that's normal. And I think that's what's so wild to me is that it is seen as not only normal, but like that's almost what's expected. And as somebody who is in the process of becoming a mom, the two sides to me is really weird, because there's this side that is, you're so strong, you are literally growing a human, it's amazing what you're doing, and so on. So
Right.
moms are, yeah, like girl power, woman power, like moms are strong as shit kind of thing. And then the other side is like, but also like if you need it, like here's some wine, right? And it's like, but I thought I was really strong, right? Like I wouldn't need something like that. And I'm not going to discount it at all. Obviously, like I don't have a baby in my arms yet. I don't know what that lifestyle of chronically being underslept is like. I don't know what it's like to be, frustrated and hungry and my baby's hungry and I can't figure out what's going on, or having multiple kids. Life is hard. And I do think that there's a whole like other subtopic of that, of like learning how to cope just with life being difficult and people not recognizing how hard it is. But it's already marketed to moms while they're pregnant. And that's where this whole thing stemmed from, is from me getting an ad for an alcohol-free wine for a pregnant mom to drink. And most of the time, if you actually look into the details of this, and this is the biggest thing I want to say for anybody who's considering those, is that they're not fully alcohol-free. And that should scare you, that that's being marketed to you as safe, because if you know anything about pregnancy, the first thing they say is that there's no amount of alcohol that is safe for pregnancy. There's not. We don't have any evidence of that.
So me being sober, I don't drink like I don't drink O'Doul's beer, right? Or like I don't,
Right.
still has alcohol in it, right? So to
Right.
say,
So if you're supposed to be sober and during pregnancy you are, right? But as somebody who, if you are trying to be sober because of a previous whatever, or if you just choose to be sober, that means you also avoid those ones that have very, very tiny, small amounts of alcohol that are considered, non-alcoholic beverages, but they're not fully non-alcoholic. And that's scary to think about, that that's how it's marketed. And I posted about one. I also had somebody send me another one that they got, and it was a similar thing with a mom on a beach, or a pregnant mom on the beach holding a drink. And it's like, not only is it talking about you're putting your baby in danger, but also it's a connotation that you cannot do this without it. And that you still have this, like you were saying before we started recording, this ritual of needing to have a drink in your hand to feel comfortable in some capacity, that it somehow relieves some stress, some anxiety for you to have this, whether it's alcoholic or not. And I think that's a pretty scary thing. I mean, and I'm sure you kind of see all kinds of people coming in, and I mean, how often would you say, I mean, do you see a lot of moms come through that are just in need of help, and it's because they've started kind of using alcohol as a coping mechanism, and as it got a lot further along, it got maybe out of hand?
so that's the typical, right? We started off social drinking, and then it works for a little while. It takes away the stress, the social anxiety, liquid courage, right? Like all of these things, it works for a little while. But something happens in the brain, and they say like once you went from a cucumber to a pickle, you can never go back. And that we see that especially during COVID with like the isolation and everything that's happened. Moms are now home with their children, with their husbands, right? Like everyone's in this house together. And so people are using alcohol as a way to deal with the mental health that they also don't deal with, right? The anxiety, depression, and things like that. So now it's the solution again to their problem. And society romanticizes this. It makes it sexy. It makes it, you have to be doing this, or else you don't fit in, to what goes on right now. And as someone who got sober at 24, that was a huge thing. How am I going to meet a guy? How am I going to make friends if I don't go to the bar after work?
Yeah.
And so for moms, I'm not a mom, but I see it all the time where social drinkers, and they're coming in later in life, right? There's definitely the younger demographic which we serve, but they're coming in their 40s and their 50s having never had a problem with alcohol, but if you look back at the timeline, they've used it for the anxiety and the depression and all the coping skills. And then all of a sudden they get to this point of no return where there's a serious dependency.
Right. It kind of reminds me of that saying, and I don't even necessarily know exactly where it's coming from, but when they talk about like, I think it's like they're talking about crabs or lobsters being in a pot and how like they don't notice when you turn up the heat like 1 degree at a time until like it's boiling, right? It's boiling water, right? And that's really, I feel like what it is it's this small, like this micro dosing of it where it's not a problem, it's not a problem, it's not a problem until all of a sudden you realize that you're drinking a glass of wine every night with dinner and that's your norm, or you're drinking a glass of wine and then on the weekends it's 2 or 3. And I think one thing that, as a health coach, what most people don't recognize is that what's considered heavy drinking for a female is not 10 drinks a week. It's 5 is considered like a moderate to heavy drinker, and 4 to 5 is very normal in the world to have, because if you go out to dinner once a week and then go out on the weekends once for dinner, meeting friends, what have you, 4 to 5 drinks happens very easily. And that's but that is actually considered moderate to heavy drinking for a female. Men is a little bit higher, but again, I mean, same thing for guys. They can put down 2 to 3 beers at a dinner and not think twice about it. And then they do it again on the weekend. And again, now they're hitting that moderate to heavy drinking, but it's seen as normal in our society. And that is kind of weird. Like there's no education that's heavy or that's moderate drinking. But I mean, is that do you guys have like a number that's considered moderate to heavy? That's what my education has shown, but.
So yeah, it's the same. So the DSM, has different levels of drinking. And really, I think it's about quality of life, right? Like we can look at the numbers and we can look at the statistics, but again, and I'll go back to this every single time because it's about the intent, right? If you 1 week have like 3 dinners and, are going to go out on the weekends, easily, like you said, you're going to hit that quota. Which, okay, does that make you a heavy drinker? By the standards it does, but maybe next week you don't drink at all, right? So I think it's looking at a longer time period, but it's really about quality of life. Like if you're using it for all of these different things to cope, and you feel like you can't do things without it, it's definitely troublesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that it definitely starts in, high school to college when we're all awkward and uncomfortable in our skin. And so alcohol is a very easy solution to that, right? Of before I go even out to wherever I'm going, I'm probably going to have a couple of, the pre-gaming, you're going to have a couple of drinks. Very normal. And I will say, like, when I was in college, I didn't usually drink quite as much once I went out. I would drink before going out, which like still very problematic because that means I was trying to get to a point of being drunk before even being out, which is a whole, again, other topic for other day. But again, when you come down from that, that's the other side, is I think that because college and even grad school, you're so used to drinking 3, 4, 5 nights a week regularly. And it's a lot of drinks. It's not 2 glasses of wine at dinner. It's drinking a bottle of wine by yourself, that when you tailor it down to 2 glasses of wine at dinner a couple nights a week, it's really not that bad. It's like I'm drinking way less, which again, of course, it's fantastic that you're drinking way less. But again, it starts in college, like you're saying, this chronic use. So can you tell me a little bit about like what the detox process looks like for someone who's been a chronic drinker? And by chronic, we don't necessarily mean the shakes every single day and have to have alcohol just to, get through the day. But someone who, let's say, is regularly drinking 4 to 5 as a female, 4 to 5 drinks a week for 10 plus years.
Yeah. So
lighting is horrible. Scoot this way.
Oh, the lighting.
Yeah, it was like half of my face was so.
These fluorescents actually aren't that great, but work with what you have.
At least it's consistent. I've got a window behind me, so like throughout the day, light will just shift across my face, which is really nice. But yeah.
So yeah, the detox process. So we are able to detox, any substance, right? And what was so shocking to me when I started this, started this work in the industry about a little over 4 years ago now, was how tough it was for people like over 40 to detox off alcohol. And, you know, they say as you get older, like you'd imagine like your hangover gets worse when you're older. You know, in college, you could like drink and get up the next morning and go to an 8 o'clock class. And we see that in the detox process as well. So as you're getting older, which has been a lot of our, you know, demographic, especially post COVID, it's the effects on the body are take so much longer than even, you know, our opiate addicts, which, you know, you is mind blowing. But this stuff is, it's liquid poison, you know. And I know there's a lot of, it's hard for me to say that as a sober person because it's a lifestyle that I'm sober, right? But I know that people drink around me all the time, you know what I mean? It's, I think it's just accepted. But to see the other side of it and to see people struggling to get this out of their body and like homogenize themselves to a level without any toxin in them, it's really scary sometimes, especially their mental clarity sometimes just never comes back. For those chronic users, they're so weak and they're not eating right. It's a tough process to watch for sure. And
Yeah.
it's just,
So to reiterate what she just said, that the detox process for opiates is a somewhat quicker and smoother process, it seems like, than alcohol is, even though alcohol is a legal substance.
yeah.
And older, but a legal substance. And opiates, obviously, everyone thinks, no, would never get into that kind of stuff, right? And great, fantastic. But also, if you're dabbling in alcohol regularly for 10 plus years, that your detox process is actually worse. And I think one of the things you point out too is that mental clarity doesn't necessarily always come back, that it's not, oh, we stopped drinking and boom, we're great again. It's that you've been losing mental clarity for over 10 years or whatever it is, that isn't coming back.
Yeah.
That, when we talk about it, or as when I talk about it as a fitness coach, one of the things I point out is, look, obviously towards your fitness goals, not great, right? There's a lot of things that alcohol impacts. We have, if you're drinking near workouts, your muscle protein synthesis goes down, right? So like your gains that you just had at the gym and then you went and drank right after, which is very common. I'm going to hit the gym and then I'm going to go out. You're not getting as much bang for your buck necessarily out of your workouts. Digestion, right? I'm sure everybody has felt it, where the next day you feel like you want to vomit, you feel like lots of other things might be happening, and it's because your digestion gets slowed down, because your body knows that alcohol is a toxin and it's going to prioritize getting rid of that first, which is a good thing, right? Your body's trying to protect you. But that also means that the food that you were trying to eat before, during, after, also that digestion gets slowed down. So even if you had, again, a fantastic dinner, but then you drank 5 glasses of wine during dinner and after, the absorption, right, is not going to be as good. You're not getting what you need out of the food that you were eating. And again, like, then digestion's just wonky for the next at least 24 hours. I mean, most of my clients see, I going to the bathroom was terrible, or like I felt like I couldn't go enough, or whatever, to be honest. I'm not hiding anything here. We talk about those things every day in our check-ins, but like that stuff gets impacted. And then at the end of the day, if you are actually trying to be healthier, the caloric intake that you're adding on, even if you're doing a low cal beverage, something that we do, and a lot of fitness coaches who are a little bit, I would say, more elevated about this, don't just track like, oh, it's a low cal beer that's only 80 calories, but it has like 3 net carbs, right? So people think I'm not taking in a bunch of carbs. Well, the way that we track alcohol is that it has to come from somewhere else, because we're not tracking alcohol as a macronutrient, right? We don't count that, but it's 7 grams. So we have to somehow factor that in. So it comes from, let's say you're tracking macros, right? And it's 2000 calories is what you're trying to aim for the day. And you've got, let's say 150, 160 grams of carbs. Well, I'm going to do some quick math. Let's take an 80 calorie beer, right? Light beer probably says it's got 3 net, 5 net carbs, something like that. But if you take 180 calories and we say, okay, we're going to use our carbohydrates for the day, like to track it, you divide 180 by 4, and that's 20. It's not 5, right? So you're technically utilizing like 20 grams of carbs, not 5, which again adds up. And most people don't think about that. So in terms of like actual caloric intake, you're climbing when you're having a glass of wine that is probably somewhere around 120 to 150 calories, right? You have a couple of those, and you may have used most of your, technically most of your carbs. You can do it by fats too, but most people just don't think about that. So now you're adding on 5, 6, 700 calories extra per day that you drink. Why, how do we compare that to what you're doing the rest of the week for your fitness and your health and say, well, yeah, it's not going to impact it that much. It's like, yeah, yeah, it does.
Like a whole extra meal.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I would rather eat a pint of Jenny's ice cream all day. Like, I don't understand it, and again, that's just me, but like, and so I think that was the other thing I had a lot of moms mention was like, you could like drink like juice if you really wanted to do that versus like potentially risking like your baby's life and or like putting your health into a worse place. Like you're going to be better off drinking juice that's got some sugar in it than you are drinking a non-alcoholic beverage that does have like small micro doses of alcohol in it. We're like,
And it's sad that moms, right, are made to feel like they still need this in their hand to fit in. Like when you're a mom, like when I saw that ad that you posted, I was like, what the bleep is this? It was so shocking to even see a pregnant woman
holding a
hold,
glass of wine. Yeah.
oh my, uncomfortable to look at.
100,
And that was
100%.
sad that we're making these moms who, again, like you said from the beginning, just to circle back, like you're so strong, you can do hard things, all of that talk. And then it's like, but if you still want to fit in and you still want your social life and you still want like drink our non-alcoholic wine,
Yeah,
it's
like, or just
sad.
drink some water and put some like crystal light in it if you need something flavored that's like not water. But that again, to me, promotes like, we know you have a problem. Let's help like push that further. Like that's what I see with that ad. And it's just kind of scary. So I had a lot of people comment on stuff and I screenshotted a lot. Because I think it's really interesting. I had some people who said like, not being a mother, but still have seen the mom wine culture and think it's just really messed up. Um, some of the comments. So it's pretty toxic how the insinuation is that wine is needed to relieve stressors. Where's all the soothing self-care rituals like bubble baths or getting lost in a rom-com or a book? Like, and people who are like, I drink wine, but it's infrequent. So it's just a special treat for me. Great. Like you can do that. This isn't saying, we're not saying you can't have a glass of wine if you'd like to, because you like the taste and you're out to a dinner with your husband or whatever it may be, or maybe it's a kid-free night. So you do feel more comfortable drinking that night because maybe you have a babysitter and you're not having to take care of your kids. Sure, you have a drink. That's fine. I'm someone who my husband knows, like, I rarely drink. It's just not really my thing. I drank a little bit more when we met, but by the time we met, I was out of grad school. And at that point, it was like, I'm an adult. I don't have time to like do this. I also didn't want to pay for it, to be honest. Like going out and spending $8 on a glass of wine that's this big, I was like, again, not trying to do that. Another mom who said, it's so true. And I loathe it so much. It's not funny. It's actually awful. Right. So like the people who are out there who aren't doing they see it as a mom and they're like, this is terrifying and terrible that's how this is marketed. And again, it's a moms need this in order to survive is what I got from a lot of people. So one thing I really want to talk about is instead of drinking a glass of wine, what can we do? Right. So on
Yeah.
your side of things, like what are some of the first things that you have people do once they get sober? And again, this isn't like you have to be sober, but again, if you're maybe trying to cut back on your drinking, what are some things you can be doing instead?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a 6-person wellness team, right? Which gets their physical body moving with like move a muscle, change a thought. So when you're having those thoughts and you want to grab for the drink, a lot of times like physical movement, which I know, you'll definitely get in line with, right? Will help change those thoughts, help with whatever it is that we're struggling with, and kind of again be the solution to the internal problem that we're going and reaching for the glass for. So we have meditation, yoga, sound therapy, right? A lot of like calming things, but like individual things, right? Like not in groups, so that when you are alone by yourself, you're able to then pick those things up again. A lot of books to read. grounding meditation work that you can pull up on YouTube, type in 5-minute meditation, right? They
Oh
come
my
right
gosh,
up.
I say that all the time. I'm like,
Calm app,
5 minute meditation, and the Calm app is like, I am
right?
the number one advocate for the Calm app.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But those are things that have been around for centuries, right? The Western medicine, or the Eastern,
Yeah.
the East, yeah, the Eastern
Yeah.
medicine, that have been around forever, and so obviously there's some validity to those things. They're just not ingrained in our culture. What is ingrained in our culture is drinking and using that as the solution. So we kind of go back to those like somewhat antiquated things, but they work. There's definitely science based evidence that says these things help your brain, especially after you've been using for so long or drinking for so long. You've depleted so much of your neurotransmitters and all of that type of stuff, and just a simple 5-minute meditation in the morning can really like start your day out
Yeah.
scientific different path.
Yeah. So even talking about that, because people love getting into like how it changes your brain. So most people know this, but if you're doing something new, your brain has to create different neural pathways to like make that happen. It's like
Yep.
trying to get from point A to point B, right? And point B is, meditation. And you've never done it, your brain has to navigate how to get there. And so neural pathways are created, right? And new neural pathways are fantastic. And it's how we keep your brain healthy and engaged, right? Versus losing like mental capacity. So it's an incredibly important thing. And again, meditation, I feel like so many people like think it's so crazy and so weird. And I will tell you, the other thing that I'm loving lately, even if it's like, it's a little like, well, not millennial, what is it, Gen Z, but like the mental health walk and the hot girl walks. I'm like, you know what? Like, you go get your hot girl walk. Like, please go do it, because it's like this new fad. But I'm like, all these,
Walking,
but yeah, walking, it's a fad.
anything, you know what I mean? A fad. Like, let's change the pregnant woman with the glass, into like, go for a healthy walk.
Yeah, like I'm gonna start a freaking, I feel like I should start like a group here that's like the hot mom walk. That's like we're just with our kids going for a walk, like that's all it takes. And I will say that like that, so recently, and this is personal experience here, I had a full-blown anxiety attack when I was on vacation of all times a couple weeks ago. Full-blown anxiety attack. It was, I think, one of those moments of like feeling very, I was just having a lot of anxiety. Like it's my first time actually taking off of work in a while, where I was literally not working at all. Not like I'm working a little bit, but I'm on vacation. It was, I'm not working, and being not by myself for the entire time. Like we were staying with my mom, which was great. We were able to have like a space that we didn't have to pay for, but it was like we were with family, with people 24/7. And I am so used to being by myself. Like I'm at home by myself. I will be at home by myself until Stone gets home from work. And it was just like, I was like, I can't. And Stone came into the bedroom and I was like already in tears. And I was like, I need to go walk. I left my phone and we walked for like 20 minutes. By the time I got back, I was calmed down. I wasn't crying, and I was like breathing regularly. And it's like, that's all it took. And I just like vented to him a little bit while we were walking. And then we just walked like in silence. And he knew, he just was like, okay, we're going to go for a walk. We'll be back. And it was like, that's all it takes sometimes. It's like your body needs to get some good things going in, saying like, it's going to be okay. Like
Yeah.
we're going to be okay if we do things that are beneficial for your body. And a walk can do that. Meditation can do that. One thing that I am huge on, that I've gotten a lot of clients doing, is journaling. And I always tell them like, journaling doesn't need to be like woo woo, right? Like you don't need to write like Dear Diary and like start talking about your day. We're not like 12-year-olds talking about our crush, right? But just jotting down things that are being mulled around in your brain so that you stop ruminating on them, right? So we're not just sitting there trying to go to sleep or trying to focus on anything, and you're just constantly thinking about whatever it is that's bothering you. For some reason, when it's up here, you can't get rid of it. You write it down on a piece of paper and it's like, boom, it's out of your brain. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like, okay, like I've given it some space somewhere, but it's not up here anymore. And I've had tons of clients be like, I thought it was thought it was lame. I thought it was like, I'm never going to get into this. And then it's like, they do brain dumps at night or journaling, and it's just dumping whatever's in your brain that you can't stop thinking about, so that it's like, I'm giving it some space. I'm giving it a place that it can exist, but it's not driving me nuts up here.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite go-tos, I would say.
I think the one thing that you were just talking about that like made me remember is like you were sad and then you went for a walk. And if you were to have grabbed a drink, right? Like we didn't talk about the fact alcohol is a depressant. So, right? So like we're wanting moms to always have a good face and like they're so strong and they can do, all these things or just anyone in general, right? And then we're using it and then like it depresses us. Where a walk obviously would elevate your mood and create those new neurotransmitters and for someone that's been drinking for so long, that pathway is so dug in, for drinking and going to grab for the drink that sometimes it's hard in the beginning to go try those new things because that's comfortable. But it's so important, especially to keep your brain young, like you said, and like active for like older age. They said like daily walks can help like cut down the risk of Alzheimer's and like just a walk.
It's tragic that people feel like cardio is like so hard when I'm like, please just like go for 10 minutes, 10-minute walks. 10 minutes is shown to have improvement on heart health, like a 10-minute bout. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be, power walking. You walk for 10 minutes, your heart is benefiting from that. So when we say, we'd like for you to get 30 minutes of, moderate activity throughout the day, that could be 30 minutes of walking. You could do that in 3 10-minute bouts and like check the box that you're doing better than you were before for your heart and for most other things, obviously your brain and stuff too. And I think the other thing is recognizing like you can talk to people and as much as it's hard to do, I think that's the other thing is it's so taboo to talk about your problems. However, I almost feel like this is one of the benefits that social media has brought about is that there are people who are willing to get on their stories, to talk on social media and be like, it's fucking hard today. Like I'm struggling today, and just getting it out of your system, one, is fantastic, like to anybody, but typically it, having an actual ability to be not putting on face for the rest of the world is actually really good for you. It's like really beneficial for you to just be like, I'm struggling today. And so if you are a mom that's struggling or you feel like, hey, this is something that I am doing, like I do find myself waiting to put my kid to bed and then I'm reaching for a glass of wine because I feel like that helps me calm down. Maybe it's that you need to find somebody else who either is also doing that or maybe isn't doing that you can talk to, and maybe you jump on the phone call with them and that's what brings you a little bit of like lift and pick you up and whatever. Or having community, I think, is massive. And so many moms talk about feeling like they're very alone in this, right? Husbands at work, if you're at home and taking maternity leave and you feel alone. I think learning that the earlier you can create that community, the whole it takes a village to raise a child, like it's real. It's also not just to raise your child, it's to keep you healthy. Insane. Yeah. Like you need to be okay with asking for help or receiving help when it's offered to you, I think is the other thing too, is no, I'm the strong, independent woman. That's great. You can still accept help when somebody wants to take your kid so you can like go lay down for 20 minutes. Like you
Yeah.
can do that.
The ability piece, I think people think like, oh, I'm the only one that feels this way, or I resent myself for feeling this way, whatever. It takes one person to be vulnerable with another mom that's struggling. And then most of the time people are surprised.
Open.
Yeah, we're all feeling this way, and then we can support each other. And I think, social media, like you said, has definitely been an avenue to do that. But there's nothing better than like picking up the phone, especially in a world of everyone texting and not real human connection, to pick up the phone and be like, I had a tough day, and have another person that can relate to whatever the situation, mom, not a mom, student, anything, right? Wife, child, employer, employee. Like, and to feel understood and heard and a part of. And that's huge.
I mean, I feel like the endorphins and the like stress relief of just getting on the phone and venting with somebody is phenomenal. Like you're like, you call your friend and you're like, I just need a bitch real quick. And they're like, tell me, girl, like, like it feels so good. And it's like, we could do that instead of grabbing a glass of wine. So like we had a community call with Level 10 2 weeks ago. And this is something that just our clients have access to. And it was a Sunday sip-in. And what we did was that you had to, and it was a no judgment zone of it, but it was like, you have to have something to sip on and you're going to put it in a wine glass, and it doesn't have to be wine. Like it doesn't need to be wine. So I don't know if anybody actually had wine, I was drinking water out of a wine glass. We had some people drinking like their nighttime sleepy drink in their wine glass, like chocolate milk, like, and it was like fun because it was like, hey, like we don't have to make this a wine glass, and we can like, all we did was talk for about an hour. And it,
Yeah.
random conversations. I learned how to fold a fitted sheet, which was great because that's actually really
Tell me words, you can send me them.
yeah, I can absolutely do it. So you don't just roll it up and shove it in the closet until you pull it out next time. Yeah, I learned how to do that on a call. Thank you to one of our clients, right? So like you can jump on Zoom. And that was something I would say that did come up some like during the pandemic, I would say, was people jumping on Netflix to watch it together. They could do watch parties and things like that. But you know, there was this really positive, healthy side of things. And then there's still just this really not so positive side. So, you know, we only have a couple minutes left, but you know, I think that the biggest takeaway is, one, if you're marketed to as a mom, like you are pregnant currently, please know that those drinks are typically not regulated and may still have a little bit of alcohol in them. So like, it's just not worth it, right? Like pour some sparkling grape juice in a glass, if anything, if that is like the number one thing you feel like you need to hold a wine glass. Two, let's try to use that time being pregnant to understand like what we can do coping wise to deal with things being difficult, because pregnancy is hard. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's difficult, but we need to have other coping mechanisms. And just because you don't have a quote unquote problem, right? It hasn't gotten to that point, does not mean that you can't start advocating for yourself and going into finding those coping mechanisms before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And that would be, like you were saying before we started recording, was that there's not a lot of like designated help for that in between.
Yeah.
And health professionals really want to be that for you. You know, as a fitness and nutrition coach, I can only do so much, right? I highly, as soon as someone is starting to, I think, in any way abuse alcohol because of emotional issues or whatever it may be going on, anxiety, depression, I'm the first person to refer out to we have a licensed psychotherapist on our team. And I will immediately say, hey, I think it's worth chatting with somebody. Like, I want this to be handled appropriately. I can do as much as I can, but I also am not going to overstep my boundaries. Let me, like, you know, this may be worth chatting with somebody, talking with a therapist, or again, just finding a friend group that understands where you're at. Like, go ahead and start those conversations before it becomes a problem. And if you're drinking, if you are drinking regularly, let's say that you're drinking a couple times a week, and it is, like you said, in response to problems in any way, it's a hard day is a problem. Okay. Saying it's a hard day and reaching for a drink is a problem. It is, you know, my kid was tough on me today, or whatever. It's a problem. Work kicked my butt today. It's a problem, right? Alcohol as a solution, and looking at it, you know, from a third party perspective, am I reaching for that glass as a solution to negate whatever happened today and kind of numb myself to whatever happened today? That's when it is starting to be used as a solution to a problem, and it's not a good one. So we want to help you find what is a good one. Anything you want to add to finish up?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. I think we've given like good, you know, examples of coping skills, but always, you know that like you've never passed the point of no return. As hard as it may be to reach out for help or call a friend or do those things, you know, there's definitely preventative measures before you get to that point. And it's unfortunate that there aren't places for, you know, someone just looking for healthy coping skills. But I think we serve that purpose today to kind of give some good examples. So
Yeah, for sure. So my information is going to be in the bio. Allison's also going to be in the bio. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe, and reach out to us on social media if you need anything or just want to chat, you know, have further conversations. So thank you guys for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time.
thanks for having me.